Now, while season 1, episode 8 of The Chosen is just packed with moments, there are so many things that I love. Nicodemus not choosing Jesus. We see even Gaius and Quintus and all these different things happening, this decree against Jesus. There's a lot of different things that are happening throughout this episode. My favorite moment is this one right here. This one with Eden and Jesus and Peter, the healing of Peter's mother-in-law, all of these moments. I just love this so much. Especially because when I watched this episode originally, I was in ministry. And so I think in a lot of ways, this scene that we're going to go through is very, very like strong for ministry families, especially ministry wives. And so this is a really, really cool scene here. I love it so much. Let's dive in. Here we go.
Where is Simon? Can he build us a fire?
He's away, Ima.
Fishing?
No, something else. Lie still. Lie still.
Eden.
Jesus.
So this is really Eden's first kind of like one-on-one with Jesus, and I think probably her last since this time. But she gets this little one-on-one time with Jesus basically to get to talk with him, and it's really an interesting take on Eden's role and how she's doing through all of this stuff. It's really, really cool to see.
I wasn't expecting you here.
People usually aren't.
Can I get you something warm to drink? I was just stoking the fire.
You saw it first, you know.
What do you mean?
What I see in Simon. You were the first person to notice when no one else did. That connects us.
My mother said I was drawn to his wildness and that I would regret it. I wonder what she will say now.
We're going into town to sell these nets. We'll be right back.
Stay here a moment, Simon.
I love this moment here. Obviously, Simon Peter is a fisherman. His brother and him are fishermen. James and John are fishermen as well. They're about to leave to go sell their fishing nets to go follow Jesus. This is like burning the boats, right? It's like that story. Whenever you get to land and you have these boats behind you, so that you cannot go back, you burn the boats in order so that you don't have an escape, and you have to push forward to survive, right? Same thing for Peter here. If he gets rid of his fishing nets, what money is he going to use to buy new ones if he wants to go back to fishing? I love that little tiny moment there of him selling what he had before in order to move forward into something new.
I just want to leave some extra money behind for Eden and Ima while I'm away.
Put your nets down and go sit with your mother-in-law.
I love how Andrew is so quick to obey. So good.
It's all right. I told Simon to make sacrifices and leave things behind in order to follow me. You are one flesh with Simon. He cannot make sacrifices that are not also yours.
Yeah, and he cannot make her the sacrifice, right? Because they're living in marriage. They are one flesh. It's not like he can just cut her off and leave her behind.
You have a role to play in all of this.
Do I?
You will know in time. I can't make everything about this easier for you.
That wouldn't be our people's way.
Now, if you're looking back at this and you're someone who's reliving this with me and you've seen all the way through season 4, you know exactly what Eden's going to go through, right? You know exactly the things that he's talking about, how she has a role to play in all of this, right? A role to get Simon Peter to where he needs to be, right? And so you're going to see all of that unfold over the first 4 seasons, but here, obviously, she has no idea what this entails.
No, it has not been. Nor will it continue to be. But I see you. to understand.
Now, this is a really interesting moment here. We get this moment of Jesus coming to Eden and saying, I see you. This, I think, is such a cathartic thing for ministry wives everywhere. If you've been a ministry wife in the past or you're a ministry wife now, you know exactly how this feels. When God comes to you and says, I see you, I feel your pain, I understand the hardships that you're going through, and you're doing a great job. You know, like that kind of stuff is so hard. But here, those specific words, I see you, come back to the story of Hagar. So if we go to Genesis chapter 16, we see that Hagar, but real quick before we go there, let me tell you about something I'm really passionate about. This is Artzabox. They're a company based out of Israel that works with local companies within Israel to send products all around the world. Every quarter, you could have a box come to your house from local vendors that work on local products, all handmade and amazing quality. Really, it's one of my most favorite companies to talk about on this channel, and I've been using them for the last 3 years. This month's box in particular is one of my favorites they have ever done. It's based around biblical archaeology. And so you can see here different things like a wax seal that's based off of a coin that they found from ancient Israel. And also this inkwell, which you can use to actually write Hebrew letters as they did in Qumran for the Dead Sea Scrolls. Now, this is an amazing company, but they've also given us an amazing deal. You can go to artzabox.com right now and type in SNIPE20 as your coupon code, and that will give you 20% off an annual or one-time subscription. With the annual subscription, you'll get 4 boxes a year, 1 each quarter, and that comes out to around $20 a month, which I think is an insane deal for the amount of things that you get in these boxes. Overall, what this company is doing is amazing. Not only do you get quality, amazing products from Israel that you could not get in the United States, but also you're supporting local businesses that are in real trouble right now over in Israel. There's not a lot of tourism going on, and so it's really hard for them to stay alive. And Artzabox is helping them do that. So if you want to support local Israeli businesses as well as the channel, use code SNIPE20 at checkout at artzabox.com. The link is in the description down below. We see that Hagar essentially runs out into the wilderness after enduring a lot of different things. So Sarai, Abram's wife, had borne him no children. She had a female Egyptian servant whose name was Hagar. And Sarai said to Abram, behold, now the Lord has prevented me from bearing children. Go into my servant. It may be that I shall obtain children by her. So Sarai is saying to Abram, I want you to sleep with my servant Hagar in order so that we can have children, so that our line will continue on, right? So that I can have a child through my Egyptian servant. And Abraham, of course, is pushed by Sarai to do this. Then everything turns around and Sarai starts hating Hagar. She's very jealous that she was able to have children and that Sarai wasn't able to have a child yet. And so this is before Isaac, before all of that, and Hagar gives birth to Ishmael. Now, the angel of the Lord found her by a spring of water in the wilderness, the spring on the way to Shur. And he said to Hagar, servant of Sarai, where have you come from and where are you going? She said to him, I am fleeing from my mistress Sarai. The angel of the Lord said to her, return to your mistress and submit to her. The angel of the Lord said to her, I will surely multiply your offspring so that they cannot be numbered for multitude. And the angel of the Lord said to her, behold, you are pregnant, and your son shall bear a son. You shall call his name Ishmael, because the Lord has listened to your affliction. He shall be a wild donkey of a man, and his hand be against everyone, and everyone's hand against him. He shall dwell over against all his kinsmen. Now, today we realize that Ishmael leads into Islam and all of the people of that faith. And so, of course, their hands have been against pretty much everybody else, and everybody else's hands have been against theirs. And of course, his nation has spread into a multitude of people, uncountable. Yet the same is true of Abraham's people, later on Isaac's people. Now, here, as the angel of the Lord approaches her, remember, in the scriptures, whenever Lord is capitalized, that is an important thing, right? It's not just saying master or someone who's important, but it is declaring God essentially here. So when we see the angel of the Lord, and it's talking about the Lord, here many people believe that when the Bible talks about the angel of the Lord, it's talking about Jesus. So again, this could be a Christophany that Jesus has come pre-incarnate to encounter Hagar and say, I see you. I see where you've been. I know who you are, and here's what I'm going to do for you. Okay. So in verse 13, so she called the name of the Lord who spoke to her, you are a God of seeing. For she said, truly, here I have seen him who looks after me. Therefore, the well here was called Bir Lahai Roy. And we take out of this the name of God, El Roy, which is the God who sees me, right? El Roy. And so we see that there. So Hagar has this moment of, God, you see me. Even in my affliction, even in my hardship, even in my trials, you see me. Hagar did nothing wrong, right? Even though her offspring led to all these other things, this was the fault of Sarai and Abram. Because they used Hagar, probably without her permission or her say-so or her vote, right? Because she was a servant. They used her in this moment to push forward what they wanted. And because of that, Hagar had this child and is eventually kicked out of camp, and all these other things happen later on, right? But here, she has to go back to her master as she's pregnant with Ishmael here. So I love that connection point here. Even though we might not equate Eden with Hagar necessarily, there are some things that are similar there where Jesus himself is literally saying, I see you. So I really, really love that connection point.
I know it is not easy to be at home when your husband is out doing all of this, even when you are excited about it and proud of him. So, I wouldn't ask you to do this without taking care of a few things.
You mean?
So earlier they had a conversation, her and Simon, of how they weren't going to bother Jesus with this because he has lots of other things to do, right? But now Jesus is here and he is going to heal her mother-in-law. So let's skip forward a little bit. Come over here. We see as Jesus comes in to heal the mother-in-law.
There is no need.
Just going to skip past some of this music here. So right there, we'll go to scripture real fast. So we get a couple of different parallel scriptures of this happening. When Jesus entered Peter's house, he saw his mother-in-law lying sick with a fever. He touched her hand and the fever left her. Now, in another parallel, we get it said like this. Now Simon's mother-in-law was ill with a high fever, and they appealed to him on her behalf. So they actually asked Jesus if he would heal her. He stood over her and rebuked the fever. So that's what he actually does in the show, is he says, leave her, basically rebuking the fever, and it left her, and immediately she rose and began to serve them, which I love that they added that in here.
Who are you?
That's one of my favorite lines too. Who are you?
Jesus of Nazareth.
You've never met him before.
Welcome to my son-in-law's home.
Thank you.
What am I doing lying here?
You had a terrible fever.
And all of you staring down.
Dasha, don't.
No one move. I'll be right back with some drinks.
So we only get Dasha in basically like two scenes. Like we see her before whenever Peter's like singing over her and stuff, but we really only get her in like two scenes. In this season, we get her in these scenes here, but then we also get her again coming back in season 3. But that's pretty much the only time we've ever seen Dasha in the show. But yeah.
And here, come stop this fire.
Coming.
Let's see. Ryan butter for Simon, pomegranate arrows, goat cheese.
Thank you.
Does your friend like goat cheese?
Yes, I love goat cheese. I should.
So in scripture, what actually happens at the end of this, which we don't really get to see in The Chosen, is that once she's healed, all these other people come and they're like, I want to be healed too. I want to be healed too. So we get her being healed. And that evening they brought to him many who were oppressed by demons. He cast out the spirits with a word and healed all who were sick. This was to fulfill what was spoken about the prophet Isaiah. He took our illness and bore our disease. So the same thing we see in Luke. I stood over her and got rid of the fever there. Now, when the sun was setting, all those who had any who were sick with various diseases brought them to him. He laid his hands on every one of them and healed them. Also, demons also came out of many, crying, "You are the Son of God." But he rebuked them and would not allow them to speak because they knew he was the Christ. So he was trying to hide his position there at the beginning of his ministry. So really interesting stuff. I wish we would have gotten to see some of that in The Chosen. It would have been really cool to see. But of course, we get other moments of that with demonic people and different things like that later on. But one of my absolute favorite moments here in The Chosen with Eden and Jesus here as he says, "I see you," and really, really diving deep into that. I think for me personally, it was a very touching scene because I was in ministry for so long, and I know that this is how my wife felt generally throughout a lot of that ministry. Was like, man, it's just hard. It's hard stuff, you know, people attacking me or Satan attacking our family or whatever else it is, right? In ministry, it's just difficult. And so to have someone tell you, "Hey, I see you, you're doing a great job," and, you know, keep the fight basically is so needed within ministry. So anyway, if you like this episode, we've got plenty more on the channel. Go check out another one of our videos. And of course, we'll see you on the next one. Peace.